so many theaters around here over the years have asked, how do we get more people of color involved? And their solution is always, oh, let's do black shows. Let's do, a show with a predominantly black cast. And then you have people saying, oh, well, there aren't enough black actors to do it. So the idea gets nixed right away, when the solution is right in front of you. It's just start casting people in the right role. Start casting the best actor for the role, and that problem will solve itself.
I guarantee you'll start to see more actors of color come out as you see more representation. It's just like what I was saying about movies and television and media in general. As you've seen more representation, and then your options are open. So now the next generation is going into theaters and movies and television shows and stuff too. It would be the same with us. If we are all cast more in roles for our talent, more black actors or actors of color in general are going to come out, and they're going to do these shows. And then you will be able to do a show that is predominantly one race if you want it to. But at that point, you really won't need to. At that point, it will be, we just feel like doing this show.
You do it because it's a good show.
Exactly.
You do it because it's a good show, not because it's a black show.
You guys are all, I think, predominantly performers, right? So how do we get more people that want to direct? How many, more people of color that want to tell stories? Not just performers. Like I would love to see, like going to Temple and also just being like, a big fan of American theater. I love August Wilson, right? And I don't want to direct August Wilson, but I want to see it done, right? And it's not like it's. I check myself a lot because I don't want it to come off as like, I want to get more actors of color, so I want to do August Wilson. I just want to see August Wilson done because I think he's brilliant. Right? I think he's one of our greatest American playwrights, but I don't want to tell that story. I want somebody who. So I guess, how do we in this community become more of a place where people can come and direct and tell the story, And you might not have an answer to that, but
I only know from the onstage part. Like I have no longing to direct, and I've never really talked too much about directing.
But I gotta think there are people out there in the area that do, right?
And so, like, a couple times.
Yes, right? I have. I was just gonna say, you just talk to people and maybe they know a girl. Well, being older and not really performing much anymore, unless something really, really interests me, I have directed a couple of things, and I'm not like a great director because I'm still learning. That's something I would be interested in, telling a story that hasn't been told before, something that, just gets more people of color out, not for being a black show, but just getting people to stretch and to, just like tell a different story. Something like August Wilson would be amazing. Yeah, and also, you never know.
Well, we have a theater company if you want to direct.
I'll talk to you
Clear
about
your schedule.
But yeah, it's something that I'm learning to do. I'm learning to do because I'm phasing out of being on stage. So being behind the scenes, I directed Tell 'Em. This is my friend Sandra Miller's story from slavery to Waverly, her family's story of how her great-great-great-grandfather was a slave, and he traveled to Waverly, he built a house and raised generations of people, and that house is still standing in Waverly. And directing that was really great because we got to tell a story that I didn't make it up. This is her family story, and I got to work with people that were the descendants of this man. And it was like I knew more than I thought I did from being on stage all those years, being able to go, okay, this is what we're trying to say, this is how it should look, and it all somehow came together. It's just like, okay, maybe I can do that. So I'm a fledgling director, but I think there are other people who might try their hand at it if they know that they're wanted, if they're needed, if there's a place where they might be able to stretch a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a lot about word of mouth,
right.
But as we all are a community, we all know someone who knows someone else, so let's talk to each other and see who's interested in trying their hand at things. And
now, where did you direct that?
That was at the Scranton Cultural Center, Shopland Hall. Okay. 2 years in a row, not doing this year, but it was for Black History Month. And before that, the cabarets that I had directed at Kappa, it was, it's really just a variety show, getting people to perform and doing their own thing, but it's something I'd do again. I would do that.
And I would say, because I definitely want to get more into directing, and then I'm really excited to have the opportunity to actually direct at King's. I think it's going to be really great.
Hey, see, that's two people right here. One, two.
For sure. And I think it's kind of like tying it back to similarly to this idea with acting, is that like directors of color not feeling like they always have to use their pieces to defend why they matter.
You
know,
know,
Yes.
the Odd Couple, right?
Right, exactly.
You know,
Like,
there's
yeah,
nothing wrong
like
with
why
that.
couldn't a
Yes.
black director want to do, right, like The Odd Couple or something like that. So I feel like there is kind of that stigma too with black directors, similarly to black actors, that black directors have to do black shows. And you know, kind of opening up that idea, opening up the conversation and allowing people to take on things that maybe they would want to take on because it would be interesting, right? So that idea of like wanting to do The Odd Couple or wanting to do like, because I know we're going to be working with Theater of the Absurd, and when you look at like Theater of the Absurd in history, it's all white guys.
Oh, yeah.
All of it. It's all white guys, a couple of white women every once in a while, but it's like, you know, just taking those ideas and kind of starting to tear down these stigmas of like, if you want to do Theater of the Absurd, you can only use white people. Like that's not true. Nothing in any of their works. Again, going back to the script, right? Opening it up, saying that those are white people because they deal with things like isolation and, you know, like depression and times during war and like this idea of hopelessness. Everybody feels that. That is a human experience. That is not just a white experience. That is not just a black experience. That is a human experience.
Yeah.
So allowing these directors to really channel the human condition, I think is really going to help open that up. And the more that they see, like if they see on the stage or on the screen these directors that are telling these kind of stories, I think that's going to open it up. It's going to make people of color say, I can do that. Like, I can direct The Odd Couple. That's so cool. I never thought that I could do that until I saw someone do that. And it just worked really well. So I think that's what it is that, you know, it's gonna take some time, but, you know, once you start seeing it, I think it's gonna start to naturally evolve.
To touch on what you just said there, we had mentioned earlier that a lot of this stuff is educational. It starts real young. It starts on an educational base. And this is one of those things as well. Like, if you look at the history of why so many directors, black directors in their day, did black films or movies starring nearly all black people or all black people, it wasn't because they had to do black movies, that was the only kind they were allowed. It was because they needed to give an avenue for black actors. No one else was giving them a spot to do these things. Look at Spike Lee. Spike Lee did nearly exclusive black films with black actors for the majority of his career. But then as you see it get further on and as you see the world change as far as Hollywood change and the roles that they were given, you see Spike Lee doing movies like The 25th Hour, you know, exclusively starring Edward Norton. You know, that's the change that we're trying to get to here. And that it comes exactly how you said, just by doing the part, just letting people come out and direct the role. They don't have to direct roles that are all for black people anymore. That's not necessary. We're allowed to walk in the front of the theater. You know, we can do shows. We don't have to. That media is no longer necessary. We don't have to do black shows and black directors directing them. We can all do everything. I think that's what we're trying to say here mostly anyway, is that we can all do everything.